Okay, quick music disclaimer here. I do not own the rights to this music, which belongs to the rightful owner, who is the intoxicating mind of Dr. Frankenstein. So he made my intro and my outro, and I hope you guys enjoy. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube, and no copyright infringement is intended. Have a good day.
A clear choice of good versus evil, of right versus wrong.
Twisted Tales.
If you like paranormal, true crime, cryptids, or anything else weird, check out the Ouch Was That a Ghost podcast brought to you by your host Liz. You can find Ouch Was That a Ghost on Spotify, Apple, or any other audio platform. New episodes drop every Thursday.
Welcome back, folks. Now, tonight's little tale here, we're going to talk about Heather Bogle. So, Heather was a 28-year-old single mom. She was from Sandusky, Ohio. Now, Sandusky, Ohio, this place has a population close to 25,000 residents. Well, 24,758 as of 2021. Now, this is an Ohio city on the shores of Lake Erie. The city's named like the best coastal small town in America. It does have a lot of famous spots though, like the world-class amusement park, Cedar Point. So this has like a lot of coastal trails around the city. There's caverns, there's tons of like wicked views over Lake Erie, all that shit, right? So back to the case here. Now Heather's life was just like anybody else's. Like she worked hard, she had problems in life, and she was also taking a course for nursing school. So she literally just got finished the course, but unfortunately, she ended up failing one of her exams. And that right there, folks, like, that would make anybody feel discouraged, especially when she gave it her all from the get-go. Now, this woman structured her entire life around her little girl, Mackenzie. Like, that was just her main focus in life. Now, she was very responsible. She took care of her, and she did work a lot, but this was just to make sure that she had enough hours in order to support them both. And even though Heather wasn't really looking for like a relationship or anything around that time, she met a woman named Carmela Badillo, and the two fell in love. Now Badillo recalls falling in love with a single mom like pretty much as soon as they met, because she saw how much of an impact that she made on others. She says that she touched their soul and not their heart. Now it seemed Heather's life was finally winding down, going well. I mean, besides the nursing school shit, she had like a job working at Whirlpool, and she did thrive for more, like we all do, and she wasn't too shook when she discovered that she didn't pass the exam. Now, the Whirlpool Corporation, this is in the market of like home appliances. It's a huge company with many major and small appliances sold multinational. So it has more than 70 centers and 78,000 employees, and this was founded November 11th, 1911, by Lewis and Emery Upton. And Heather worked very hard at the factory. Like, wasn't a bad place to work. And like I said, everybody dreams of having something more in their lives at one point or another. And the factory wasn't far from Sandusky. Like, it was located in Clyde, Ohio, about 17.8 miles by car. So you're looking at 30 kilometers in Canadian distance. Now, non-stop drive would be like a half hour. And this is where she met Carmela, and the two had been dating for about a year now. But the relationship was anything but awesome. I mean, like any relationship, there were doubts, arguments, shit like that. It was just that stuff was more heated now than it ever was. Like, there was nothing but arguments back and forth. Like, the relationship was just in fucking turmoil, right? But whatever, arguments happen, and Heather left to go to work her night shift on April 8th. So she worked her full shift, and then surveillance cameras had her time-stamped leaving around 6:17 a.m. But she never arrived home, so maybe she was blowing off some steam or something, right? But it's when she failed to show up to pick up her daughter from school is when people began to worry. 'cause she never would have done anything like that. I mean, not without notifying her family or like making arrangements for her daughter to be picked up. And even though her family knew like shit was just a little rough, they knew she wouldn't just up and leave her daughter. So she was reported missing to police. Now, police in the family looked around for her, and police had spotted her Oldsmobile in a parking lot of the Somerton Apartments. This is located at 236 Hickory Street in Clyde, Ohio. So she was found roughly about a mile from her job. Now, upon searching the car, they found her body in the trunk, and by the shape it was in, like, police knew that this was fucking personal. She had been badly beaten and shot to death. Now, police also noted like several defense wounds around her hands. 2 bullets were fired into her back, and this penetrated vital organs in her chest, and that would ultimately be her cause of death. But it looked like she'd been through like a ton of physical violence. Like she had marks on her wrists from restraints, bruises all over her body, and police believed that she wasn't shot in her car but elsewhere, because there were no bullet holes located in the car. She was found wearing an oversized Mickey Mouse shirt, and her hair had been cut from her scalp, badly hacked off. Her fingernails were freshly cut. Now, this could be possibly due to, like, a way to destroy evidence, because they've been cut right down to the cuticles, so if she scratched her killer, she would have had skin under her nails, so that would have easily provided DNA evidence. Or maybe this guy was just a fucking freak and he kept her nails in like a Ziploc bag or something. As a trophy or whatever, I guess. I don't know, there's some crazy people out there. And police just set out to find out all they could, just to see like who would have wanted her dead, whatever, right? Just getting leads. And they were made aware of the rocky relationship and arguments between Carmela and herself. But it was just weird coincidence, like it happened like the Wednesday before her night shift at the plant, and then it happened like the next morning that she went and disappeared. Like, I don't know, just bad timing for sure. Like, you can see why they question her about that, like, because their relationship just went fucking south. So, I mean, you look into that, you get your leads, you get what you have to, right? I mean, that's how you get your answers to begin with, investigating shit. So she admitted to having problems in her relationship, but she didn't want her dead. And police checked over her phone records, and she ended up being cleared of any involvement. Now, lead detective of the case at the time there, Sean O'Connell, he rounded up 3 suspects. Now, there was Keona Barr, Omar Satchel, and Keray Jeffrey. Now, Keona, she was arrested for posting on social media of her wearing like a similar Mickey Mouse shirt, like the one that was found on Heather. But she also lived in the apartments where Heather's body was found, so kind of coincidental, maybe. Now, Omar Satchel, he was held as a suspect as he served time for like home invasions and firearm charges. Now, sources say that Omar was in Heather's apartment around the time that her body was found, so I guess he was going to rob her or whatever, right? So it was found out by Detective O'Connell that Omar may have stolen a small caliber firearm. And the third man, that was Keray Jeffrey, he was the one who dumped the murder weapon. Once the media got wind of the investigation, everyone began to demand justice for Heather, and some had held benefits for her daughter, Mackenzie. Now, police talked to Keray, and they asked him about him walking along the riverbanks, and about a black bag that he had carried with him, which contained the firearm used in the homicide. And a dive team was sent into the river in hopes to recover the bag with the murder weapon, but they came up empty. Now, Detective O'Connell, he was asked what motive these 3 would have to kill Heather, and to that he replied with, "I don't know what their motive would have been." Although he didn't really have any evidence to arrest any of the 3 suspects, he continued to try to build up a case against the 3 of them. Now, some officers and the staff didn't really seem like any involvement from the 3, so it seemed like Detective O'Connell was just pressing them too hard in order to gain some evidence. Now, some question that if he could even conduct a legitimate investigation. Maybe it was bad police work on his part. I don't know. But Keona Barr, she felt that she had been targeted right from the get-go. Like, police even, stormed into her job. This was at a nursing home, and they had a warrant for a DNA sample. They had their guns drawn in the workplace, and this eventually caused her to lose her job and her income. And to then, she lost her apartment and her reputation. And over the course of the investigation, Detective O'Connell smeared her name around, because he named her as a suspect publicly. And that just ended up making things go downhill and made things worse. So during all the questioning that was fired her way, Detective O'Connell, he didn't really ask if she had an alibi or anything. And also, it's a little known fact here that the post that she made to social media about doing 8 to 10 years for murder and pleading insanity, that had been meant for the child's father, who had just received a mandatory 10 years for a first drug offense. And all she meant by that was there are people out there getting 8 to 10 years for murder by pleading that they're insane, and that it had nothing to do with Heather. And the shirt that Detective O'Connell insinuated belonged to Keona, it wasn't her shirt at all. Now, she had only owned one Mickey Mouse sweatshirt in her life, and it's when she mentioned it being a sweatshirt instead of a t-shirt that kind of made police think that she wasn't the one involved, but they still pressed her anyway. And they asked her if she was involved in the death of Heather Bogle, and she replied with no. So it kind of felt like she was getting, trying to be framed for the girl's murder. I mean, this wouldn't be the first time a police investigation had led in this direction. So she notified a man named Matt Westerholt. Now, he was the managing editor of the Sandusky Register. Now, the Sandusky Register, it's a daily newspaper that serves the town, and Matt worked for them. So he also covered stories on Detective O'Connell prior to this case. She contacted him in order to clear her name, and she just wanted to get all this shit out there to the media about being targeted by police for a murder that she didn't commit. Now, Westerhold covered stories on Detective Sean O'Connell and the former sheriff Eric Overmeyer, and he was accusing them of corruption and incompetence, and honestly I can see why. So there was a newspaper printed there at one time. It had a headline that the two have a history of botching high-profile cases. So he recalls about half a dozen cases with families involved that complained about how they were treated by law enforcement. And despite all this hearsay and shit that came along from the public, O'Connell spent a year and 2 months trying to put together this investigation. And the three that played a role in her murder were just getting fucked around. During the investigation, police ended up finding DNA under Heather's cuticles. Now, this DNA didn't match Keona's, it didn't match Kayree's, or Omar's, and Sean O'Connell still tried to pursue those three individuals. Now, he made up a report to the prosecutor to seek an indictment, and he left out one fucking part, the part about the DNA not matching. And this ended up getting out to the public and stuff. So 1 week later, he was taken off the case and put on leave. He intended to indict people for murder that had nothing to do with it. And to top all the things off, Overmeyer, he was stealing drugs. So the police department wasn't the most honest in the world. Now, a criminal investigation was led to the arrest of Detective O'Connell, and he was indicted on 4 felony charges. The guy just totally falsified police reports. He tampered with evidence, he misled the public officials, and he concealed evidence. And it was brought to the attention of everyone that the three didn't even know Heather. They never met her, they never sold her pot. It was all bullshit. And O'Connell was sentenced to 2 years in prison. And the three that were not involved in her murder at all, they were let go. And the case eventually went cold for a couple of years. But police began to retrace the steps the day that she left the factory at 6:17 a.m. Where she would have went. So they dug into her email accounts and her social media activity. So they scoped out her GPS records just to find an electronic trail of coordinates. So what they found was 13 minutes after her 6:17 timestamp from leaving the factory, she was inside a trailer home a few miles away just from the factory, and she was there for a period of over 1 hour. Police went and knocked on the door of this home. They discovered that it was a co-worker of Heather's who had never been questioned. Now this guy was named Daniel Myers. The guy worked the same exact shift as Heather, and he left the same exact time as she did. He denies knowing her all that well. He said he knew of her, but not what happened to her. And he kind of questioned them as to why they were talking to him, like, well over 2 years after her murder. So they asked him to provide a DNA sample, but he declined, saying, quote, "I'm going to pass on that. I didn't really know the girl or anything like that," end quote. So Sheriff Chris Hilton, he remembers, like, when he questioned Daniel, he recalls, like, what really made his hair stand on end was that when Daniel asked, "Why are you guys investigating this?" as if the case had already been closed. Now, Daniel was the only suspect in the case to deny a DNA sample from police. So they returned 2 days later with a search warrant so they could obtain his DNA. They got the results back from him about 5 days later, and it ended up belonging to Daniel Myers. So they checked out Heather's GoFundMe page during the investigation here too. So they found some damning evidence. They noticed a donation of $125 from Daniel, who also wrote a fucking condolence with it. And he even went to her funeral, and he made it real noticeable that he appeared there. He even signed the guest book or the registry book or whatever. So, like, for a guy that didn't really know her all that well, I mean, the guy sure put in a lot of effort. And the guy was hiding in plain sight the whole fucking time. But to me, like, the case was just focused, like, on those other 3 suspects. So Daniel just got to sit back for a little bit and just watch the shitty police work unfold. 5 months after reinvestigating Heather's murder, Sheriff Hilton and his team arrested Daniel Myers. Now, Hilton kind of remembers the only thing that he said to them when they arrested him was, quote, "Oh my God, they're here to get me," end quote. Now, upon searching his home there, they didn't find any bullets or the gun that was used to kill Heather. None of that stuff was found. But police work uncovered what looked to them to be new floorboards. So these had been installed recently. So that meant that Heather was murdered in the trailer. Now, they also found women's underwear that had been kept in a safe. They had videos of himself with other women, and police just got a weird fucking vibe from the guy. So, after his arrest, 10 women from around the plant and whatever, and around the city, they came forward with claims that they had all been raped by him. Now, it was found out later that the main reason none of the women came forward to police, originally, well, it was from embarrassment. And Myers preyed on weaker women, ones that would, like, stay silent and, you know, that they're vulnerable and whatnot. And just like that, 10 women, just like Heather was vulnerable, she was upset, so Myers kind of fed off that. Like, she was just upset about her relationship with Carmela, and even a text from her brother when she was telling him about the nursing school and whatnot, and failing. He replied back telling her she was too stupid to pass her licensed nurse exam. And, like, right there, like, that enters Daniel right there. Like, he worked with her, he talked to her, and she thought that she could find a friend in that guy. I mean, like, one guy to, like, lean on, listen to her troubles and shit. And when she went back to his trailer with him just to confide in him, like, about her troubles and whatnot, it's just, like, guaranteed she was just looking for a friend, but she had found this asshole. And he only preyed on her for his own desires. He didn't give a fuck about her. If he did, she'd still be alive. And, like, if he acted like a friend to her and was there for her, like, in her time of need, it probably just would have been appreciated. But instead, like, she put her faith in the wrong fucking hands, and she ended up a victim to this piece of shit. So, like, what officers believed happened was shit got real as soon as she walked in the door. Prosecutors believe that he laid on the sexual advances quite thick from the get-go. He was rejected instantly, and he grabbed her, and she punched him square in the face, because Myers actually had a cracked tooth, and one broken tooth had been repaired with super glue. And after that, he just physically overpowered her and beaten her into submission. Heather was then handcuffed, and this guy had shit like this handy mostly because of his kinks, and he beat her severely, and she was just completely defenseless. Like, this was the kind of piece of shit coward that this guy was. And then she was shot and killed. Now, police also noticed that his mattress was in good shape, so it was like brand new, and there was a chance that he might have discarded the old mattress due to blood and everything. So Daniel was arrested and charged for Heather's murder. Now, friends and family were about to get some justice here, because the courtroom was soon to get underway. Now, Daniel Myers had pled guilty to the charges against him, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Originally, Myers was going to receive the death penalty, but he pled guilty for his crimes. Now, the fact also remains that since he was so careful not to get caught by cutting her fingernails and everything, like, police kind of thought, like, was this his first murder? Now, police got to thinking that, maybe there's something else that went on with this. So an investigation was opened for the death of his former girlfriend and the mother of his child, a woman named Leanne Sluder. Now, her death was mysterious, but ruled a suicide. So they checked up on the case after his arrest, and a suicide note that was written by Sluder had been recovered amongst Daniel's belongings. So the murderer's family had handed in the suicide note to police, who were totally unaware that the note even existed. But it didn't help the case in any way or change the outcome of it. It was still ruled a suicide. Now, they looked back into it. They found that Leanne Sluder had more than likely died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and the case was closed. So she was found dead in an Emerald Estates trailer that was owned by Myers. Now, the couple had a child together. His name was Ethan. And when the incident occurred, this was back in February 28th, 2009. Now, Myers told police that he found the 37-year-old in the bedroom of his mobile home lying on the bed, and she was dead from a bullet wound through the chest, with a rifle laying next to her body. Now, when he was questioned by police, he told them that she suffered from mild depression, and the case was ruled a suicide back in 2009. Now, the family of Sluder stated that she didn't like guns, she didn't own a gun, and she didn't know how to load one. Now, when the family wanted some of her personal belongings back from the trailer, they said that Myers wouldn't let them in, and an argument occurred with the father, to which the sheriff's office was called, and a deputy actually had to stand by while the belongings were gathered. And they just kind of found it weird that it just seemed that Myers didn't want them in that house. Even though the family mentioned that Leanne gave no indication that she was unhappy or depressed, she wasn't suicidal. Like, that was from her family's fucking own mouth. And she even talked with her sister, like, hours before her death. And no new links have been gathered up in this case. Now, during his trial, Daniel Myers didn't really show any remorse to the family. And family offered up brief impact statements, to which he just kind of cracked a smile at them, or a grin or whatever. Now, Bogle's cousin, Pat Harger, he made a statement, and it went, "All I can say is God ain't gonna have mercy on your soul. I feel sorry for your family sitting right there, because they gotta carry around your last name." Now, Bogle's ex-girlfriend, Carmela, she called Myers the monster that creeps beneath your bed, and Myers should never see the light of day. And I want you to know that you took away a mother and a friend and a loved one that no one can ever get back. You are a murderer and a piece of shit. Now, it was just good old-fashioned police work that, was able to help solve the case, like everything from the GoFundMe shit to the email, the GPS tracking that located her phone at the residence for 1 hour, and then it was actually shut off. Now, police were able to go to Myers' house at Emerald Estates on County Road 224, and then figure it all out from there. Like, even the GPS from Myers' truck, it showed that he had, like, a sort of infatuation with her. because he drove routes back in March and April where he would drive by her home at 1615 East State Street. And then he drove to like the Somerton Apartments too in Clyde where her body was located. Now after her murder, his GPS didn't show any more trips around her address. And as part of his pleading guilty so that he could avoid the death penalty, he must register as a Tier 3 sex offender. And ever since Myers' arrest, everything else got situated, so he's now behind bars, and he'll remain there for the rest of his life. And that's it, folks. I think that's all I got. I think I covered everything for you guys. Thanks for tuning back into Twisted Tales. Oh, and you want to check out some other good podcasts there. There's like the Eye Opener Society, there's Ouch, Was That a Ghost podcast, Mortal Musings, there's Bucket of Chum, the Shark Movie podcast, Bad Movies, Worst People. There's a lot of ones that I listen to, so I mean, they're all great. There's Dark Mysteries and Trusting Evil, so check all these guys out, man, they're really good. Thanks for tuning back in, folks. I'll pop something else off here soon.
I prayed for her to come home and to come home safe. Only now do I realize that God took her home to be with him.
Those words directed at Daniel Myers came from Heather Bogle's mother. They were read by a victim's advocate in court on Wednesday. In April 2015, Bogle was brutally murdered and stuffed in the trunk of her car by her Whirlpool co-worker in Clyde. Nearly 4 years after her death, her loved ones could begin to feel closure.
You are the monster that creeps beneath your bed. You are the person that's hiding around the corner that everybody warns you about. You are a criminal and you are a murderer and you are never anything that should see the light of day.
By changing his pleas to guilty, Myers is now convicted of aggravated murder and kidnapping, and that he did so with sexual intent. He will also be classified as a violent sexual predator for the rest of his life. During the court proceedings, Sandusky County Prosecutor Tim Braun presented gruesome images from the crime scene and key details that led to Myers' arrest. That included donating $125 to a GoFundMe page to her family just after her death and DNA under her fingernails that matched Myers. Braun says several women came to his office to say Myers was sexually aggressive toward them.
He would get very quickly violent. He could turn in an instant and go from being a nice guy to grabbing a woman by the hair and slamming her in the wall and making her have sex.
Myers was not arrested until 2017. Deputy Sean O'Connell was sentenced to 2 years in prison after tampering with evidence and trying to charge 3 people with Bogle's murder. Sheriff Chris Hilton spoke after Wednesday's verdict.
Knowing we did the job correctly means 2 things for us. A monster is put away for the rest of his life, and a family can properly grieve and begin to remember appropriately the young woman they love so much.
Bogle was just 28 years old at the time of her death. She left behind a daughter.
Godspeed, Heather. We did it.
The judge actually asked Myers if he wanted to apologize for his actions or say anything at all, and he declined to do so.
Twisted Tales.